Welcome to this episode of the Smart Leaders Sell podcast. I'm Jess, sales coach and leadership expert, and I am really excited to dig down into today's episode. Hey there, poddies. I can't believe it. We are almost mid-May. It seems like this is the time of year when we all get very obsessed about sunshine, when we are usually getting excited about holidays. That's probably not on the cards this year, unfortunately. But also where we all start freaking out about audience sizes. Now, I've just come off the back of a C-suite launch, and today I want to share some transparent figures around what that looked like, some numbers that you may or may not be surprised about, and also dig into why we're freaking out about audience sizes, whether you really need to. Spoiler alert, the answer to that is yes, in some cases, and what we can be doing about it on a practical level. So I think the first thing we have to look at is why we're all so bothered about having thousands of people on our list anyway. There is a small part of me that believes that we've been indoctrinated over the years. We've been told that, in order to make money, we need to have hundreds of thousands of people on an email list somewhere. We've been told that we need to have big Facebook groups, that we need to have huge followings on different platforms, that we need to be everywhere and do everything. There's also a more cynical part of me that thinks somewhere along the line, we've been indoctrinated into believing we are more worthy as business owners if we have an email list that is more than 5,000 people. I don't know where that started, but for me, I remember coming into the online space and I would get all these emails of people who'd be like, oh, I'd really love it if you could take part in my summit or my giveaway. It seems like you've got lots of value that you can bring to the table, and it'd be so great to have you do this recording of this interview. And you'd be thinking, oh, this is cool. And then at the end, almost like a PS, it'd be like, but, you can only participate if you've got 5,000 people on your list. So if you don't have that, you're not good enough. And I remember thinking, well, it's an arbitrary number. Like, yes, okay, I understand the logic of it in that you want to get it in front of as many people as possible. But just because I have 5,000 people on my list doesn't mean that 5,000 people are actually even going to be bothered by it or enjoy it or take any interest in signing up for it. So, there was also that part around whether or not having more followers made you a more worthy business person. Did it mean that you had more interesting insights to share? Did it mean that you were going to be somebody who was making more money or somebody who was more likely to be successful? And that was really interesting because for a time, it kind of was the case, right? For a few years, it was the norm that if you had more followers, if you were somebody who had a lot of people in a Facebook group, or you were somebody who had 1 million people on your email list, you were making more money. And then what happened? And I think for me, I kind of tracked this in about 2016, 2017, just before I launched this podcast, actually. I noticed that there was a problem. There was a problem with the way that the online space was operating. And the problem had come because of influencer marketing. The problem had come because of the rise in influencer marketing. And this was really interesting because suddenly we were in this world where anyone, literally anyone, was aiming to get more followers. Teenagers were doing it. Suddenly we are in this age where literally anyone is competing for followers. We've got teenagers who are on Instagram. We had people who were just normal people hanging out on Periscope trying to get 1 million followers. And that's followed us into the present day. I'm watching a lot of people jump onto TikTok, and not just business people. Like, I'm watching my actual friends who are like, oh, I'm getting on TikTok tonight and I'm recording a TikTok dance video. And don't worry, of course, I'm taking the mick out of them because I think it's hilarious. But in this world of influencers, and with the rise of so many, I want to use air quotes here, but normal people building audiences around things that we perhaps wouldn't have expected, it became harder than ever to stand out. It became harder than ever as an online business owner to cultivate and create an audience that was different. You know, suddenly we were seeing people who were banding together communities around really weird and wonderful things. They weren't trying to monetize them. You know, I obviously have taken up gardening, like a loser. I've taken up gardening. I find it so therapeutic, and I have had an allotment now for, I don't know, 6 months. The amount of people out there who are running huge, like vast allotment-based Facebook groups, there are thousands and thousands of people who are literally just sharing like, oh, you know, this is the best way to grow tomatoes, or this is the best way to make a cucumber live, or whatever else it is that you're trying to do. There are people out there who are growing audiences for being attractive. That's something that started really on Instagram with, you know, the rise in paid influencer marketing. But also you see these like younger teenagers, they're 17, they're 18, and they're living incredible lives. And they're putting this on Instagram, and they are famous for being beautiful. We're also seeing that reflected now in TikTok. You know, I've been on the platform a few times, and I've watched the videos. I don't think I would ever actually put a video up there, but I do think some of them are quite entertaining. And again, it's a known thing on that platform that the more attractive you are, the easier it is to build the audience, right? So in this world where we are having to compete more than ever before to build an audience, why does everybody even want one? Why does everybody even want a huge audience? And that's the question that I posed to myself a few weeks ago. Before I went into launch for the C-suite, I started to think to myself, well, you know, Jess, you haven't really built a huge audience over the last almost year that I've been focusing on helping entrepreneurs sell to corporate. I've actually built a relatively small audience. The email list for that side of my business is 867 people. It's less than 1,000. In terms of the listens that the podcast, the Selling to Corporate podcast, gets every month, we just hit our biggest month ever with 1,124 listens. But it's really interesting for me because even I was sucked into this moment of the audience isn't big enough, so how will my launch go? Not only that, but I also had to deal with coronavirus on top of it, and everyone was very, very worried about coronavirus. It's an interesting thing, and obviously the focus of this episode is not the pandemic, so I'm not really going to lay into that. But there was a lot that was coming up for me the week before I launched, for sure, and I had to go back and remind myself that this whole idea around needing thousands of people in an audience had come from people who had needed that to start. You know, you see, in 2014, 2015, this online marketing space, this online business space was different. The theory around it was build it and they will come. The theory around it was get a big audience and a handful of people will buy. And that's because the space ultimately was being dominated by marketers, not salespeople, which for me is really, really interesting because there are vast differences and also huge similarities in marketers and salespeople. It's so interesting for me because in corporate organizations, they have to work synonymously. And there is always this really awkward competitiveness, this really high degree of a desire for ownership of spaces, and they will fight to the last possible point on whether something is sales or whether something is marketing. But in order for both to win, they have to work together. In the online space, we didn't see that. We saw a lot of people who were great marketers. But the thing about people who specialize in marketing is that their job is to build that audience. It's to build the audience for the lead generation system. It's not necessarily always to convert them. You get some marketers who work on things like retention marketing, but true marketers are not really focused on the actual conversion of the sale. That's the job of the salesperson. The marketer's job is to build the audience around it. And so we were in this space, operating in this space by a lot of people who didn't have a background in sales. And so they did need thousands and thousands of people in their audience because they weren't great at conversion. And that's when everything starts to get a bit skewed, isn't it? Because we have to look at that and we have to start thinking, okay, well, if we've been taught that in order to make money, we need hundreds of thousands of customers, and we're taking the stats on like 1 to 2% of your audience will buy, well, is that true? Now, the answer is not simple. It's yes and it's no. If you're an average salesperson and you're operating in the online space, then yeah, your audience might buy at 1 to 2%. If you're a great salesperson and you're operating in the online space, actually you might have a much higher conversion rate. It also depends on the business model that you choose. And I think that's something that we don't talk about very often. You know, just to kind of share, I guess, a real-time insight. If you look at the difference between my business now and my business 2 years ago, it looked very, very different. I was selling primarily low ticket but high volume products and services. And it's kind of interesting. And I guess my business is almost like one of the best case studies for it. When I started in the online space, I was only selling one-to-one services. And I would charge £1,200 to work with me for 4 weeks. It doesn't sound like a lot, does it? Because, I mean, we're now in an online world where if you charge somebody £1,200 for 4 weeks, they'd be like, what? That's crazy. Of course I'll buy it. But back then, you know, this is the first time I'd sold anything in my business for me. And, you know, so it was crazy. I couldn't believe that people were going to pay me £1,200 to work with them for 4 weeks, and that they got these crazy results and they were so happy with it. And, you know, it was amazing. But that's where I started. And I started there because for me as a salesperson, I often say that we're lazy, and we kind of are, but it's really that we want the quickest way to get to the goal. And for me, I knew that I had to replace my salary, my corporate salary. And I knew that there was a certain amount I wanted to be making every month. I wanted to be able to pay my bills. And that's really why I started my business. I didn't start it to have like a 6-figure or multi-6-figure or 7 or 8-figure empire. Like, I started it because I couldn't do my corporate job anymore because of my health. And so I just wanted enough money to pay my bills. And that was that. I was kind of like, cool, if I get that, hunky dory, no bother. There was no greater ambition. I don't know whether that came later because I watched other people who were telling me, oh, you should be aiming for this, or whether it was just my own internal sense of competitiveness. Either or, take your pick on that one. Here's the thing. I started out by selling what was a relatively premium service at that time because I knew it would be easier and quicker for me to hit my financial goals. And sure enough, in the first 6 months, I was one of those irritating people who'd done 6 figures in 6 months. It wasn't because I was smarter than anyone else. It wasn't even because I was necessarily building a bigger audience than anyone else. It was just that I was charging more per customer. So it was easier for me to make the revenue, you know, by a long shot, because obviously for me, making 100,000 only required 100 customers. Actually required less than 100 customers, but let's even it out for ease. That's a lot easier than actually the direction my business took next. So once I got tired of one-to-one coaching, it wasn't that I was tired of coaching one-to-one, it was just that I was burnt out. I'd had a lot of one-to-one clients, I'd done a lot of one-to-one work, and I wanted to explore the world of one-to-many. You know, it seemed really sexy. Everyone was talking about one-to-many courses and how you could make more money, and you could just say the one piece of information once, and then, you know, it would all be good, and then hopefully you could turn it into passive income. And I wanted that. I was at a point where I'd worked really hard for a couple of years in my business, and I was like, I want some respite. I want some rest. I want it to make it a bit easier for myself. And so I went into this one-to-many model, and, you know, that's where audience building became really integral, because suddenly my cost per customer was actually lower, considerably lower. My prices by this point were premium. They've always been premium in the market. I make no apology for that. My stuff is really good. But suddenly I was selling great quality services, and yet customers were paying me a lot less because of the delivery model. that I was using. And so I had to have a lot more customers. And so what everybody had been telling me from the outside was that, oh yeah, you can run these courses and it's like so much easier because you say the thing once and then you just deliver it. It wasn't actually the case for me. For me, I seemed to be putting in a lot of effort on the delivery. I was answering every single question in Facebook groups. I was, still doing a lot of work. And now I was actually having to look after more people in the same amount of time, but I was getting paid less per customer. And that for me didn't really jive in my brain. I kind of thought, well, hang on a minute, why am I doing this? Like this doesn't seem realistic to me, because why am I working harder, serving more people, but getting paid less per customer? And yeah, sure, there's always this kind of overlap of, well, I will make more in one launch and that's fine. But inherently, it wasn't the business that I wanted to build in terms of balance, right? And that sounds quite pretentious, doesn't it? Because, I'm all about hard work. I absolutely am. But equally, I didn't want to have to perform at that level forever. I couldn't see myself creating one of these big courses that was $2,000 and having, 300,000 people in them. And that wasn't ever the business that I wanted to build. And somehow inadvertently, I had built that. And it was really hard, for me, because it didn't tie into the core values I had for my business, which ultimately, I don't believe that if you have 300 people in a program, you can serve every single one at the best possible level. I just don't, especially if it's low ticket. And the reason is that I'm going to dig into this in a minute, but there's less profit per customer, which means you can't spend as much on support and things like that. And I was spending way more time looking after groups of people for a lower lifetime customer average. And then I took a year out, and not out of the business entirely, but I took a year where I spent all of my time creating truly passive income. And I was like, this is going to be it. This is going to be brilliant. I'm going to have massive audience. I'm going to sell stuff that I never have to deliver. It's going to be automated courses and webinars, and I don't have to do anything. I was so excited about that. I look back on it now and think, what an idiot. But you have to live and learn, right? So I created all these passive products and I had these funnels and they performed really well. And don't get me wrong, it was exciting. I could make money. And I was living the dream that most people are selling now. They're like, oh, you can have passive income, but they're not actually delivering passive products. Like, I wasn't having to deliver a Scooby. I just sit at home and watch Netflix, and people would buy my automated courses and stuff, and great, woohoo, awesome. Unfortunately for me, one of the things I actually really like about my business is the fulfillment phase. And so even though I'd just gone through these two pretty big shifts around, I'd been relatively burnt out from one-to-one because I'd done a lot of it at a high level. And then I'd created these courses that were semi-passive that I was still delivering. And I was really, I always wanted to over deliver and make sure people had the best experience. So I was serving more people, but for lower cost. Now suddenly I wasn't having to do any work, any delivery, any of the bit that actually I realized I quite enjoyed, but I was getting paid. And for a while that was, cool, about 3 months. And then I was bored witless because I was just like, well, what else do you do? What else can I do now? I have an audience, but I'm never engaged with them. It's not like we have a close relationship anymore. This was around the same time that I realized I was an introvert. I'm somebody who, I don't do well with shallow relationships, and I don't do well having to spend lots of time with lots of people and then having no time to regroup afterwards. I thrive on that deeper level of connection and knowing people and being able to spend time with good people, and then having a decent amount of alone time to just, defrazz my brain. So it was around that time. And it was also around the same time that I realized that I was bored of not being able to control some of the delivery results. The downside to having a passive business, a truly passive business, is that you cannot control the results your clients get. It's very, very difficult. Once they've bought something and they never have to like show up to a call with you, or they never have to do anything with you afterwards, it's very difficult to motivate them, to inspire them, to make sure they're doing the work. And that frustrated me. Here I was, I created these genuinely really good courses and stuff, and then people would buy them and then they wouldn't necessarily even use them. And I'm like, what? This is crazy. And it just brought out the control freak in me, who was like, why are you not doing the work? And that bothered me. And so, over this period of 2 years, I'd gone from only having one-to-one clients to then doing one-to-many to then having something that's completely passive. And then that's when I brought back in, I was like, right, okay, well, I'll have a few clients that I work with them. I'll have a few clients that I'm able to see and really support their results live. And that reminded me that I didn't need this big audience. I didn't need to keep paying the massive Facebook ads bills. I didn't need to do all of that kind of thing, because actually I could get these clients and it was really easy. It's a very different model. Even now, when I look at the C-suite, it's a premium service. Absolutely it is. There's no argument about that. There are two reasons for that. One is it means that people are motivated, they stay accountable, both themselves and publicly, to get the results that they want. But also it means that we can spend more on supporting those customers. And I do. I pay my experts to come in and deliver trainings. We've had 2 incredible trainings from the amazing mindset consultant that I use, Heather Gray. And I pay her to come in and deliver those trainings so that people get genuinely solid and great information that they can use, that they can implement, support, right? I pay out the experts who help with the program itself. So my team who are involved with rebranding the program, or were involved with rebranding the program, who were the ones setting up the portal, who were the ones managing, or who are the ones managing it every single time that somebody forgets their password or they can't find a certain module or whatever that looks like. We provide a really, really high level of service in that, and we're able to, because it's a premium service, because we have more to play with per person. And it's interesting because it's almost the same as the way that we used to run in the corporate space, where you get a certain amount per person of learning and development budget. And that's what I do with people who join the C-suite. I'm like, right, okay, this is how much they've paid, and this is the L&D budget effectively for that person. So if we need to get in a specific guest expert to train on their area, fab. If we can get a hiring manager in that's going to be most relevant to only maybe 2 people, great, let's do it. They all get paid. And that is important. It gives us the ability to create a premium program, a premium service that people use, that people get great results on, because we can afford to spend more money in terms of customer development, the customer's L&D versus customer acquisition. Yeah, it doesn't cost me anything at the moment to get those customers. We've done it all organically, right? So let's look at that process. Now we understand, okay, different horses for different courses in terms of business model. If you're somebody who wants to create a low-cost membership, you're going to have a bigger audience. Zero question about that. If you're somebody who wants to create a premium service, you are not going to need as big an audience, right? That's just the first thing we have to look at. The second thing we have to look at is whether you have an audience issue or a conversion issue. Okay, so once you've decided on the business model that's right for you, and I'm not gonna tell you to have one or the other. This is up to you. Whatever business model you want to have, what's going to make you happy. We have to look at the actual issue at play. So maybe it will surprise you to know that most people don't have an audience issue. They have a conversion issue. Maybe as I'm saying that, it won't surprise you at all. You'll be like, well, obviously, I hear this all the time. Most people build an audience and they will always justify with, it's not big enough. It's not big enough for me to sell to you yet. I'm going to wait 6 weeks before I can sell to them. I'm going to start up this Facebook group, and then I'm going to wait until it's at 5,000 members, and then I'm going to start selling stuff. Now, we all know what I think about baby bird syndrome, and the fact that if you do not sell early and you don't normalize that process, then your audience will freak out whenever you decide to do that, whether it's early in the process or late in the process. It's not going to make any difference. They're not going to be happy about it. Yeah. But the interesting thing for me is that because so many people don't think about the business model they want to build, and then they don't look at the numbers that they actually need, they have no idea what size their audience needs to be. And then they have no idea whether it's an audience issue or whether it's a conversion problem that they have, because they never set a goal. So for me, I was quite transparent with you guys. I said at the outset of launching the C-suite, my goal is to get 100 people in that program by the end of the year. We currently have 49. So we're in May now, or will be when this goes out. We've got 49 people. Not all of them participate in the Facebook group. So that's, that's cool. That's up to them. They show up to the live calls, they show up to the BD days, but they don't necessarily want all the notifications from a group. We've actually got 40, I think, let me just check actually. I'll pull this up because I want to be accurate with this. We've got 40, I think we've got 47 in the Facebook group. Go. Obviously it includes me. So we've got 45 inside the Facebook group. So including me, 45, so 44 people, right? And then we have 5 people who are not inside the Facebook group. The reason that I wanted this program to get to 100 people by the end of the year is because if we get to 100 people by the end of the year in that program, we'll have generated £750,000, which is obviously $750,000 from one program. That's pretty cool. Everybody's like, oh, that's a sexy number. And to do that in a year would be an incredible feat. Now, I don't know how it's going to go. I would imagine relatively well, but who knows? Like, things change. Coronavirus hit. Like 2020 is the year of the unexpected. Here's the thing though. We have 49 people in this program. And when it started, I think when we launched, we had 21 when I first launched it at the Converting Corporates event in November 2019. So here's the thing. We have these 49 people who are participating in the program, which is amazing. We launched with 21 when the program launched in the Converting Corporates event in November 2019. And we officially opened the doors to those participants on the 6th of January. So since the 6th of January, it's become an evergreen program. And, we've been enrolling people pretty steadily. And I said to my team, I was like, look, we'll have a target of 2 a month, and then we'll do a couple of launches in the year. And the big aim is to get to 100 people and see if we can hit this $750,000 goal. Now, when we started the program, obviously there were only 21 people. So we started it and we had one monthly hot seat call for 3 hours to cater to everybody so they could drop in and ask questions. We had one business development day where I sit on Zoom from 9:30 to 4 and we all do business development activities that I facilitate on the day together. And then they had the Facebook group and I was in there every day, Monday to Friday, answering questions. We now have double the amount, well, double plus some. And so now we're able to spend that more money on additional time for that audience because it's paying for itself, right? The course is profitable. It's paying for me to spend more time in there. So now we have 2 business development days a month. We have the 3-hour group hot seat every month. And I spend probably 2 hours a day in there, Monday to Friday, answering questions, looking over proposals, helping people formulate emails, talking about business development calls, all that kind of good stuff. It's great. As more people continue to buy this year, we will up the support level further. And the aim is that probably by the end of the year, as we hit our 100-person goal, I will be spending a lot more time in that program. So instead of having 2 business development days every month, we'll have 4. Instead of, having 1 group hot seat call every month, we'll have 2. Like, we're going to consistently up that. And we're also upping the amount of experts that we get in. So we've had a PR session with the incredible Dina Berman. We've got these mindset consultancy sessions from Heather Gray. We have hiring managers coming in, which is all good. We're able to increase that service. We're able to increase the capacity for people to still get the same results, to still get the same support levels, but with more time because it pays for itself. If it was a membership, if I was making, let's say for argument's sake, £30 a month from each customer, I wouldn't be able to do that. I just wouldn't. It would never, ever, ever be commercially viable for me to do it. So even though people would still need the same support level to get the results, I wouldn't be able to do it because it just would cost me too much. And it, my business would always be operating at a loss, which obviously is not what you want to do. However, when we talk about this audience versus conversion issue, my audience is a hell of a lot smaller than a lot of people in my space who are having to or want to sell low ticket but high volume, right? So pick out any single person in the online space who is making decent revenue from an ongoing membership site or recurring subscription product or anything that is low ticket, high volume, paid email newsletters, membership sites, paid subscription boxes, podcasts that you pay to listen to, even software as a service subscriptions, think Netflix or Amazon Prime or, Audible, how much you pay for those. You have to have vast audience numbers. So if you look at anybody in the online space who's doing anything like that, where it is low ticket but high volume, I guarantee they have an audience that is 100 times bigger than mine. I look at some of my best friends. Janet Murray is a prime example. She has an incredible audience. She's built this awesome audience. They're super engaged. They love her. She's now doing these daily emails and people want to read her emails every day. And she's got a great audience across multiple platforms. She creates incredible content. And that's because that's what she teaches, how to build an engaged and awesome audience. Right? Her audience is infinitely bigger than mine. She gets way more likes on all of her social posts. That could be to do with the fact that she puts a lot more effort in than I do. I don't know. I think it's probably that. But the point is, if I was judging myself or my self-worth based on like who got more likes and stuff, Janet would win every time. Yeah. We have very different businesses. Her business is incredible. I have been through her courses and her content, and it's absolutely 5-star. If you want to build an audience, 100% go and buy her Build Your Audience course. Best investment you could make. Our businesses inherently are very, very different. And Janet's business requires a bigger audience because her main focus is this incredible membership that she has. She also has some premium offers, but they're on the back end and they're not the primary focus of her marketing activity. My business is very different. So, we obviously took the selling to corporate angle in June last year. It's been the main focus of my business. It will continue to be the main focus of my business for about the next 5 years because I really love it. And I have an email list that I've amassed over, 11 months now of 867 people. My podcast gets that 1,124 listens last month. And yet, in our latest launch, we did 6 figures. So in our latest launch, where I did one webinar, I sent out 10 emails over the course of 7 days, we did a 6-figure launch. But how is that when my audience is so tiny? Well, here's the thing. I don't have a conversion issue. Right? I might have a smaller audience, but I'm a salesperson. That's my job. Like, that's the bit that I love. That's the bit that I'm good at. That's my talent, is selling stuff. So, when you look at whether you have an audience issue, if you have a massive audience, but you're finding it difficult to get them to buy, then either you have to look at audience engagement. Are they not engaged? Are they not interested in what you're doing? Are they not vibing with whatever it is that you're trying to sell? Or do you have a sales issue? Right? If they're not buying, it's quite likely your issue is conversion, not getting more people. It always baffles me why we do this in the online space. People, instead of going, okay, people aren't buying my stuff, so I need to look at either my sales process or my offers. They go, oh, I know, I'm just going to go and get some more people then. Why? Why do we do that? That's not troubleshooting the issue. That's just doing what makes you feel comfortable. Incidentally, it's also one of the things that Janet's course is great for, is that she does teach people how to build engaged audiences that are actually interested in your stuff. But a lot of people out there who are teaching audience building do not. They just are like, yeah, here's the follow unfollow strategy on Instagram. Go follow Justin Bieber and then a bunch of tweens will follow you and then you just unfollow them and then you just look like you have more followers. That's not going to get you anybody that you can actually sell to. Unless you happen to be selling Justin Bieber hats, which, I'm not sure that they're all the rage at the moment. But We have to think about this, audience versus conversion. Troubleshoot the issue. What is the issue for you? Genuinely ask yourself that question honestly, and then do something about it. Don't sit there and go, okay, my issue is conversion, but I'm just going to go and build more of an audience because that makes me feel more comfortable. Or my issue is that actually I've built the wrong audience, so now I need to go and build the correct one. Don't be worrying about that. The other thing is, don't fall into the temptation of, I always need to be looking at my next lead. No, you don't. Like, this is the silliest thing that I've ever heard, genuinely, is that people online, when they're selling, and we don't see this in the corporate space because the audience generation is very, very different. It's more about proactive content by far. So the silliest thing that I hear in the online space is that people do a launch and they have a good launch, right? They might do, I don't know, 5K, 10K, 20K, whatever they want. And then they're like, right, okay, I've got to go and build a bigger audience. I'm going to go and throw a load of money at paid advertising. And I'm like, why are you doing that? Don't necessarily be so quick to jump into that. Make sure you've exhausted your organic resources first. It's been 12 months and I have not used one paid ad for the selling to corporate stuff. I've been very, very honest with you guys about it. I put the podcast on iTunes. I was really open that I didn't do any promotion of it. I did everything wrong according to the business building basics. I didn't promote it. I let it be organic. I didn't go out and take out a bunch of paid ads. I didn't go and create on one of the popular platforms like YouTube or, anything else that was supposed to be better than podcasting. I could have done all those things and I didn't purposefully, because you know what will get you a bigger audience and better leads? Having a clear message and word of mouth referral. You can grow an incredible business completely organically if you are super, super clear on who you are selling to, what you are selling them, and your message around that. And right from the beginning, even when selling to corporates got like 127 listens in that first month, we were selling tickets to the event, £497 a person. It wasn't inexpensive, but there were 100 people who were listening. And out of those 100 people, there was like 8 people who went, yeah, okay, I'll buy that. Great. I didn't need 1,000. If I'd have had 1,000 people listening and only 8 had bought, I'd have been a bit hacked off, actually. My conversion rates would have been lower. And it's the same with this launch. Yeah, we did a 6-figure launch, but with only, less than 1,500 people in my audience. You might be thinking, well, it's more than 1,500 because you have 867 on the list and then 1,000 on the podcast. But the reality is you'll always see some crossover. So for argument's sake, let's say 1,500. For me, I would way rather have 1,500 amazing people in my audience that actually are interested and invested in what I do and who at some point, whether it's now or in the future, will want to buy from me, than have 15,000 people that just kind of look at my emails and go, oh, okay, cool, interesting. It's up to you. Again, this is a personal preference thing. I don't want that because I think my conversion, it would be very, very difficult for me to onboard. If I had an audience of 15,000, I still operated at the same conversion rate. It would be very, very difficult for me to onboard a course fairly to my existing participants, but also because I'd have to be building relationships with those people. I get a lot of emails every week in my inbox. It's one of the reasons that if you ever email me, I do tend to come back. I will do eventually, I promise, but sometimes it's just slow because I get a lot of emails and I love that. But imagine if I had an audience that was 10 times bigger and they were all emailing me every week. What would I do? It wouldn't be the same business. It wouldn't be the same business that I want to build, right? And that's a business that is relationship driven, that is small audience, good relationships, solid sales process, good conversions. I don't want to be an influencer. I don't care how many people listen to my podcast. I think it's great that people do. And I'm so grateful for anybody who does and anybody who shares it and things. But that's not what drives me. I don't care if I get 100 likes on a post or if I get two. If the two people who like it are people who genuinely are engaged and they, leave me a little comment, great, fabulous. You've got to decide what kind of business you want and then decide your audience building strategy and then decide your conversion strategy. And then the final thing you've got to think about is the cost of upkeep for a large audience. One of the reasons that I came away from it was because I ran a lovely membership and I absolutely loved having Jotty. So it's still one of the biggest, for me, it's one of the saddest parts of pivoting my business was that I had to let that membership go. But to grow it beyond what it was, it would have cost an awful lot in terms of upkeep. Having a large audience costs you a lot of money, even if the audience themselves are getting a lot for free, right? So think about it this way. We have to, if we have a free Facebook group, we have to pay for a community manager eventually because we have to make sure that people are adhering to the rules or that people are super engaged, or we might have to invest in other tools to keep them engaged in our content and keep us top of mind in a world that is so saturated. We might have to pay for community managers for paid programs, which is fine because obviously that profit is covered by the cost of the program. But if it's always a cost for a free audience, paying out for an email software provider, paying out, because obviously you pay based on how many email subscribers you have, paying out for more ad spend, paying out for somebody to run ads and paid traffic, all of that kind of thing has a big cost involved. And you have to go into this eyes wide open and decide what you want. So, I get that we've kind of talked a lot today, and there's been a lot of information, a lot of examples and different things. But the key thing that I want you to take away today, and the key thing that I actually want you to do, is sit down honestly with yourself and say, okay, what business model do I want? And then what audience do I need? And what conversion rate do I need to get in order to achieve that? And so if you are somebody like me who's like, I want to make life easy, great. Go out there, create a premium service model. You will have to get way fewer customers and your audience won't be as big. Will it necessarily be as glamorous? Will you have hundreds of thousands of likes on each post? Will you be the person that they interview on BBC News because you've suddenly gone viral on TikTok? No, absolutely not. But you'll be happy. Equally, if you're the sort of person who wants to have a low ticket, high volume model, you want lots and lots of people to be consuming your stuff daily, you want to be an influencer, you want to be recognized all of the time in the street, or whatever that dream looks like for you. Again, there's no disdain, there's no judgment. Do that and just factor in, okay, as this grows, I'm going to need to up my spend in these areas. Don't build any business model and think that there will never be ongoing costs, and start allocating those. If you want to build this big audience because you want to have low ticket, high volume, factor in those costs now, right? At some point, and when are you going to get an ads manager? What are you going to start spending on Facebook ads? How are you going to cultivate that audience? Where are you going to keep them? How much content are you going to create to serve them, both on a free basis and on a paid basis? If you're creating a premium model, how much of that budget is going to go towards that customer's own development and support? Are you going to bring in any external experts? Are you going to pay those people for their time so that you own that content or not? And, then you don't necessarily have the IP. Like, what is that going to look like for you? How are you going to make your service stand out? Please, 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 if you do nothing else from this episode, just decide, what business model do I want, and build it eyes wide open. If you've enjoyed today's episode, please do always drop me an email. Let me know that it's been something that's resonated with you. I will, as I mentioned, get back to you. It just might be a little bit of a while. I'm still working my way through emails from the launch at the moment. So I'm taking my time. But obviously, if you do have any questions, please feel free, drop them over on an email. Or if you are thinking about audience building sounds hard, and I think that I might want to proactively create an audience, go ahead, join the Selling to Corporate Facebook group. You can go in there and start thinking about potentially adding a corporate revenue stream and not having to build a massive audience at all if you've been massively put off by it. Equally, if you are thinking that you do need to build an audience and you would like some expert help and support and guidance with that, obviously I cannot help you with it at all. It's not something that I do. But my good friend Janet Murray really does. Her course, Build Your Online Audience, is incredible. So if you do want to build that low ticket, high volume, or just high volume audience base, make sure you go and check that out. I'll make sure that the link is in the show notes for you. I'm not an affiliate for the course, but I was one of the original beta testers. I think I was actually the first person ever to buy it. And I 100% trust Janet's guidance when it comes to audience building. So if that is the route that you want to take, I cannot help you, but she can. She has an incredible course, so go and check it out. I'll see you in the next episode.